We're taught and grow up believing in the scarcity model of love, that there's only one soulmate, one forever, and one person who can complete us. But what if that entire worldview is wrong? Today I want to introduce to you a different model and show you that love is actually not a finite resource, that there's actually another amazing principle, an abundance principle of love, and it will change completely the way you love. And it doesn't matter whether you're inclined to practice monogamy, polyamory, or open relationships. It applies. And by the way, this video is not about being poly or non-exclusive. This video is going to be about understanding the nature of love itself. I'm going to talk about the scarcity model of love that we inherited. I'm going to talk about the abundance principle and the science of why love multiplies, and then what the idea of OLNE has to do with love and relationships and how you can apply it into your relationships. And then I'll cap it off into a nice, beautiful bow. So the scarcity model that we inherited, inheritance means you learn something whether directly or indirectly. In other words, for example, has anybody ever told you directly not to eat people? That's an idea that you inherited because it wasn't taught directly to you, but you know it. In other words, some of things are culturally conditioned, trained. So here are some things that you inherited. Love must be exclusive. Attention has to be rationed, divided. You're taught that affection has to be earned. You're taught that desire has to be in your control. You're taught that losing a person equates to losing love itself. Any of that sound familiar to you? I want you to consider something. None of what I just mentioned is emotional truth. All of what I've just mentioned is transactional in nature. It's economic thinking applied to connecting with humans. Now, I want you to consider why that's insane. Love must be exclusive, attention has to be divided and appropriately distributed, affection has to be earned, desire has to be controlled. Losing a person equates to losing love itself. All transactional, all economic. I want you to consider another thing. Scarcity is a story in your mind, not a biological truth. Subsequently, this creates a particular dynamic baked into traditional relationships. Jealousy, ownership, fear and anxiety of being replaced. The belief that if your partner were to love someone else, there's less left for you. I want you to think about all of that and consider that this collapses love into a what? A commodity, a transaction, something in which has to be exchanged, earned, given, controlled, managed. This is opposite to reaction, or rather, this is opposite to connection. Now I want to talk about the abundance principle. So first we talked about what you've been taught, what you've inherited essentially, and now we're going to talk about the abundance principle, which is talked a lot about in the book OLNE, available on Amazon right now. I want you to consider that love is not a transactional thing. It's not like a slice of pie in which if there were only 5 slices of pie, only 5 people will be able to have their own piece of the pie. And that little slice of pie will be that small size because there's only one particular size of pie. Do you understand? I want you to reconsider love as a muscle. You don't run out of it by using it, and you generate more of it through expression. And here's why love isn't a finite resource, meaning it's not limited. It's actually quite unlimited. When you give love, number one, when you give love, it grows. You have more of it. For example, a child asks her mother, "Oh no, you're gonna have another child? That means I want to have less attention and love for me." And the mother laughs at that child and says, "No, silly, that's not how love works. The more you love, the more you can love. Love is not economic. Love is something which generates. When you share appreciation, number 2, it grows. Appreciation expands. When you practice connection, it deepens. None of these are transactional. They're connective. They're regenerative. When choice is incorporated and applied and baked into the relationship, presence multiplies. I want you to have another consideration. Humans are actually wired to connect with many people. Friends, family, mentors, communities, children, and partners. I want you to consider a third thing. You already love abundantly. You already love multiple things. In the book OLNE, the very first few pages, it debunks love and actually it says that anything you value, you love. And you can test this. Do you value anything which you don't love? Love and value are inextricable. They're conjoined. So you already love abundantly. You already love many people and many things, except where? Except in romance, because you've been taught a story that love cannot be multiple. It cannot be that you love multiple people romantically, but you can love many people in any other context. Because love, the idea of exclusivity, was a mechanism of control. And this mechanism of control is useful for people who want to control population, despite its being non-biological and completely economic and transactional. But if you are interested in a non-economical transaction, non-transactional relationship, a relationship fundamentally based on love. Remember, I also understand that there are many other formats of relationship which doesn't need or require or involve love. This is wonderful and awesome and good if all parties understand that, hey, we're in a relationship based on real estate, network, expanding our wealth, whatever. We don't need to love each other, which is why arranged marriages worked really well, much better than relationships that presume to be about love, but actually is in the format in which arranged marriages were supposed to be. We're married for love, but everything about our marriage has nothing to do with love, but everything to do with transactions and exclusivity and ownership, etc. Transactions. So let's talk about the science. Why does love multiply? Why is it expansive? Why is it not transactional economical? Number one, attachment doesn't limit quality. Rather, attachment doesn't limit quantity. It doesn't limit quality either. Humans, you and I, develop attachment with multiple people throughout life, not just one. Parents, siblings, close friends, mentors, networks, partners, community. Our attachment system, our attachment psychology, wasn't developed for exclusivity. It's developed through connection with multiple bonds. And this connection creates stability, which I'll go over in a few seconds. Furthermore, a new bond strengthens overall stability and bonds with other people. And I'll show you how that looks like. Number two thing you have to consider, oxytocin doesn't have a quota. Your body doesn't run out of oxytocin when you bond with more than one person. It actually produces more as you experience touch, affection, intimacy, safety, and emotional closeness. Love hormones regenerate, much like most of our body. In other words, they're not transactional, they are created, they are regenerated through affection, touch, connection, interaction, not spent and traded like a limited resource. Number three consideration, your nervous system thrives in networks. It doesn't thrive in dualities. In the book, OLNE really goes over the network idea, especially with people who have personality disorders. Even when it's just a slight personality disorder, which a lot of people have in relationships, is incredibly important. We actually regulate better when supported by multiple relationships. With people that are easily dysregulated with a lot of trauma, it's even more important to have multiple relationships which they're open to interacting. The word was trigger. I was looking for the word trigger. If you have a lot of triggers, it's very important to have access to a network. Very importantly, so it's just not one person carrying the emotional load, which is unbelievably stressful in a relationship, which is the source of many of the problems in a relationship. It's not because of anything wrong with the relationship, but it's because of the burden, the emotional burden, the stress. But remember, stress is of the body. And because of the hormonal configuration stress produces, the hormones it produces, it creates a lot of problems in relationships, which has nothing to do with logical correctness. So consider emotional load. This is why a network of partners, close friendships, therapists, and community will make you feel more grounded. Your network system, your nervous system, funnily a network of interactions with your brain and body, will stabilize when you have an abundance of multiple sources of regulation rather than a single source of dependency. There's something in psychology called dependency disorder. Especially for a person who's dependency disorder, it's absolutely critical that you ensure at the very outset of the relationship, during what in the book OLNE calls the consideration period. During the consideration period of your relationship, you have to outline that you must list out and be able to contact and even practice contacting a network where you can co-regulate so the burden doesn't inherently fall on the primary partner. Number 4 consideration is that love is generated internally, not divided externally. You don't have a fixed love tank that empties and dwindles down as you give love away. You actually generate love from your own emotional and psychological resources. Furthermore, as you grow in self-worth and self-regulation and connection, your capacity to love grows. I've given an example before. Think of love like I have a cavity. In my cavity, there's a furnace, a thing that produces fire. Sometimes it's not producing it's producing a very small amount of fire. But if you have, for example, it has a pilot light. A pilot light is something if you take a lighter and or a flame, a source of flame or a candle, and you put it against a pilot light, it doesn't take any fire away from the flame source, the candle, or the lighter. It just expands the love. The more you love, the more you can love. It's regenerative, not divided. Love expands through expression. It's an additive, not a subtractive. So now let's talk about how OLNE, the ideas in the book OLNE, how you can put it into practice with an abundance principle when it comes to love. When you apply for principle number 1, non-conditional love, you don't withhold affection because you think it's scarce. Remember that affection grows, so you don't have a limitation of whom you're affectionate. You give love and you express your love because it's who you are, not because it's something you have to bargain and trade and transact. Number 2 principle, non-judgmental acceptance, ensures you don't punish your partner's connections. You accept that their joy with other people, even if it's romantically, but it could be platonically, it could be professionally, it doesn't diminish anything from you and from your own personal relationship with them. It doesn't diminish your self-worth or your value in their eyes or in any eyes. Number 3, open communication, that principle. You don't hide connections out of fear. You have the ability to speak openly because remember, love thrives in transparency. It builds such intimacy in a relationship. When you don't have open communication, how much intimacy do you imagine you could build? When you are in a relationship where there's closed communication, you can't talk about, oh, that I would love to fuck that girl. I would love to sleep with that guy. I would love to sleep with all of his friends. If you can't say that, communicate that in your relationship, how much intimacy do you actually have when you can't be who you are? Number 4, autonomy. Actually, your partner's freedom to connect with other people keeps the relationship alive rather than threatened. Principle number 5, mutual choice, mutual choosing. Each individual choosing the other in the relationship rather than being obligated. When it comes to the principle of an abundance mindset, an abundance principle of love, you don't keep a partner. Rather, they choose you again and again, and you choose them again and again, they choose you again and again. And there is absolutely nothing nourishing than chosen love. Remember, there's obligated love. They're with you, they're in the same bed with you because it's the only bed that they could be sleeping in. And then there's chosen love. They're in the same bed with you because they actually want to be there. Because out of their options, they're with you. But let me iterate that abundance is not about having multiple partners. People imagine that I have so many partners. While I do have several partners, I also have a big life, which has nothing to do with romantic love. What it's actually about, the abundance idea, is that love is not limited. And therefore, you don't have to limit your interactions or transact with your interactions, but operate based on connections and affection and love. So let me end it with this. Love is not scarce. It's a story that is supposed to be scarce that you inherited unwittingly, unenlightenedly. Remember that clarity is enlightenment. It's a story inherited from culture, socially. Remember that connection grows when it's shared. Joy multiplies when it's witnessed. Love expands when it's allowed to move. When you stop treating love like it's a scarce resource you have to protect and transact with, and control or give away and earn, you begin treating it like a gift that you can express, that you can receive. Everything for you opens up. So I want you to consider these questions. Let me ask you a question. Where in your life do you ration out your fear? Do you divide love out of fear? And let me ask you another question. What would happen if you just allowed your love to expand and regenerate on its own based on your connections and affection and intimacy with the people you love? Share this video with other people. You'll help make the world a better place for all of us. If you have any questions, leave in the comments below or just send me a message. I strongly encourage you to go on Amazon, order the book OLNE. It's a very easy search, OLNE. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.